Why don't you have a seat? Tell me what's going on. I had a question from Frank, who asked whether he should pick an Opera Master, Polynesian, or a Yukari Royale. I get a lot of questions like this. Should I pick this or that? I think this is not me trying to dodge the question. I love the Opera Master model. I also love a Yukari Royale. But I'd like to make this a little bit more general. I think you have to ask yourself, what are you looking for? And I think that people sometimes, I'm not saying Frank did, but sometimes people forget to ask themselves certain questions. And then they ask me, should I pick a Pilot B.R.E or should I pick a Hippity Boo Boo pen? I don't know. Have you watched reviews on both? Have you read reviews on both? Then you may know whether the B.R.E is your pen or the Hippity Boo Boo pen is your pen. This is very important, right? We should not forget this. At the end of the day, you'll be writing with it, not me. And that's why I've recorded hundreds of review videos. This is not a dig at anyone, okay? I'm just saying, like, ask yourself some questions. How am I going to use it? Where will I use it? Do I need a big ink capacity or not? In the case of Visconti, do I want a pen that writes or not? Yeah. What am I looking for? In ways of, say, shape, size, weight. Yukari Royale is not a light pen. Opera Master, definitely a heavier pen. So all these factors you take into account. We should take into account. And I mean, I can say something, but I mean, I've not owned the Yukari Royale. I've only used it. I haven't owned one. So I can't talk about all the ins and outs of that model, whereas I have owned a number of Opera Masters. Very nice pen, but not for everyone. Very heavy, top heavy a bit, so that's not for everyone. So all I was trying to say, because again, I'm not trying to dodge the question, but I mean, we could spend our entire series talking about this or that. Ask yourself those questions, and then remember that it is you who has to use it, right? But in this case, Yukari Royale. Okay. Now, what about, this was a very interesting question that I want to treat with some interesting respect here. Excuse me. I was asked, and I'm paraphrasing and abbreviating a little bit here, are there stereotypical likes or dislikes about fountain pen designs worldwide? For example, this person said, I like a lot of Faber-Castell pens, which is very European-centered, but then you think of British pens which have such a long history. Like, are there specific stereotypical likes and dislikes? When we talk about stereotypes, I want to emphasize right now, what I'm saying now is going to apply to pens. Not to people, not to all sorts of other living beings. I'm just talking about fountain pens. This is very important to me. I'm only talking about stereotypes regarding fountain pens. And in no way, shape, or form should these comments be generalized to stereotypes about, say, people. Okay? I think when it comes to pens, there absolutely are certain stereotypes. And I think that when it comes to stereotypes about fountain pens, often there's a bit of truth in them. But that can spiral out of control a bit. For example, I think that when you're talking about Italian pens, often you're talking about pens that have very interesting designs or interesting materials. They look very flashy and they look very beautiful and they look very interesting and attractive. They may or may not write. This is a stereotype. Many Italian pens will write, and some Italian pens don't look particularly attractive. When I think of Japanese pens, I kind of think of the opposite. I think of pens that may not look particularly incredibly sleek and sexy, for lack of a better word, but they will write every single time. This is a stereotype. Now, I don't think I've experienced a lot of Japanese pens that didn't write, or didn't write properly, or didn't write at all. I have definitely had my share of Italian pens that did not write, and I'm not just talking about Visconti. Many other Italian brands may or may not write. And of course, sorry, I shouldn't say brands, specific pens from those brands, right? There's not a pen maker that I know of who only churns out non-functional pens. I don't know. But it's something to take into account. I'm not trying to be offensive. I'm not trying to make a dig at anyone. I'm not trying to say all Italian pens are terrible. I own many. I own a few Italian pens. And I love them all. But they all write. And in some cases, I've had to invest additional time, money, and effort into making them write. I own a number of Japanese pens too, and they all wrote out of the box. But most of them don't have the flashiness of the Italian pens. Now, does this really say anything about you as a person? If you only like Japanese pens, or only like Italian or English or French pens or whatever? Well, maybe to an extent. If you only like Japanese pens that are a bit understated but write well, then maybe you don't care about the ostentatiousness of pens. Should we draw broad, sweeping conclusions about what that may mean about us as persons? I don't think that's wise. And I don't think it's desirable either. Having said that, it's a very interesting question to think about. Now, I don't know what I would say about myself, because I have Italian pens, like a Visconti Speakeasy, which is gaudy at best, but I love that pen. I also have Japanese pens. I also, I wouldn't know what to draw as a conclusion from that specific observation that I like both of these kinds of pens, because in my mind these are two extremes. There's the very designed Italian pens, and then there is the very functional Japanese pens. And I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with either. It's just two different kinds of pens. The final question in that specific question was, what about Mont Blanc? Do you think Mont Blanc pens aim for universal appeal? I think Mont Blanc has been very clever in its marketing, but I don't think it's a universal appeal. Think of the Meisterstück range. It's black cigar-shaped pens with gold trims. Yeah, you got rhodium too, I know that, but I mean, in my mind, the archetypal 149, for example, is a black cigar-shaped pen with gold trims. So is a 1911 large. So is a 1911, their standard size from Sailor. There are many, 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 many black cigar-shaped pens with gold trims. So I don't know if it's universal appeal. I think it's more of a marketing that makes us feel that Mont Blanc is God's gift to mankind, and that is the be-all, end-all pen brand that's the only thing you need. And some people will agree with that, and some people will disagree with that, and that is the charm of having an opinion. Now, question number 3. Will you review the new Parker 51? A fair question. Probably. If I can get one somewhere, then I will. I'm not a huge Parker 51 person. I don't think this is a secret. I have nothing against the pen. I know it was revolutionary in design. It just doesn't do much for me in design. This is perfectly fine. Some people love it. I'm not one of these people. So if I can, then yeah, because I think that would be a very popular review. Now, the final question for today, this was a short one, but I think the final question is very interesting. I'm paraphrasing because this was a longer email, so I've expurgated it a little bit, and I'm paraphrasing. What do you think are the effects of social media on fountain pen lovers? For example, are we more prone to pen buying because we see shiny objects on our social media feeds all the time? Can you tie this to psychological behaviors? And finally, how about pens that always write, right? That we see on social media, everyone's pens perform beautifully, and we never see pens that don't write. Would that create a bias? Would we feel bad about our pens? This kinds of stuff. I really think this is genuinely an incredibly interesting question, and probably one that I could talk about for a very long time, so I'm going to try to be as focused as I can be. I think there is a huge effect on social media on hobbies in general, because we see all kinds of kit and gear and things that we may want to purchase. Because it's so easy. Not to mention that there's all this fascinating stuff. The other day, I was looking on the website of an army surplus store at rain ponchos, because I didn't need one, I just wanted to look something up. And the next day I have an email from Amazon with their listing of 20 army style rain ponchos, which is disturbing to say the least, because I wasn't searching for these through Amazon. Now, beyond that obvious disturbing fact, yes, just think of Instagram. I'm not even talking about YouTube, just Instagram. I follow a lot of pen accounts. I see all kinds of pens. And sometimes I see pens that make me think, yeah, I kind of want that. But I would say probably literally 99% of the time, I do not end up getting that thing. However, that's because I'm a little pen-sated. But back in the day, I would have been swayed much more easily. And I think that especially people who are beginning in a hobby, again, that could be fountain pens, that could be soccer, that could be survival, it could be anything, right? But you follow these kinds of accounts, you see it, and you think, oh, I want that. And I think it's something we didn't have before, right? There was no social media. Think about 20 years ago, there was no social media. So you would have to do this through bulletin boards, or you'd have to do it through actual brick and mortar pen shops, which fortunately we still have a couple of. But I think it's a very important aspect of our current hobby that we all share these things. Not all of us, but you know what I mean, as a figure of speech. We share these things online. And then yes, you want something. Then you want an architect nib too, because it gives such beautiful lettering. Or you want a piston filler too, because it has such a nice capacity. Or you want this celluloid, because Arco looks so shiny and nice. It's true, I think, that affects us and affects the way we approach a hobby. And I think one very important psychological phenomenon that underlies this is the hashtag FOMO, the fear of missing out. How many people, and this is not a value judgment, I'm just saying, how many people see the new Sailor 1911 color and immediately rush to a shop to put in the shopping cart? But you already had 5 or 6 or 7. Do you need it or not? Well, that's a different question. I don't want to really get into that, because realistically speaking, you need one pen, right? And then you can write with that. You don't need anything else. But we all know that doesn't apply to us, because we like fountain pens more than that. And so we look for other things, different filling systems, materials, nibs, brands, etc. But I think that fear of missing out, I really think that is becoming an increasingly important and defining phenomenon in our society. We all continuously are afraid that we're going to miss this, we're going to miss that. If I don't purchase this, I won't be part of the crowd. I have to go to every pen show back when we had pen shows. I need to do everything. I need to buy the new this, I need to buy the new that. And I personally believe it does not give us happiness. It gives you a rush of happiness when you buy that thing, but then you have it, then you use it once, and it disappears in a cupboard. I'm really exaggerating a bit now, but again, I'm trying to make a point. So I think that social media, that's how it works. You see something, you think, if I don't have this, I'm not part of the group anymore. And we know from social psych that in-group, out-group effects are very, very powerful. And it's easy to sway us. I once saw a video, I'm really trying to make a point, so forgive me for this example here, but I once saw a video from Dave Canterbury, the survival skills instructor, who has a lot of great videos on YouTube, and he was talking about knives that you use in survival, and this phrase always stuck with me. He said you have to look at the skill level of the person using it if you're watching a knife review. And his words were, you can take a $5 knife and put it in the hands of Morris Kohansky, very famous survival instructor who passed away not too long ago. And he will make you want to own that knife. Because his skill level is so out there, I'm paraphrasing now, that you just want to have that product. And I'm deviating a little bit from your question here. I'll come back to the final part of your question. But I think this is something that people who review products have to be very aware of. I do not describe myself as an influencer. Maybe I influence some people with the review I do, but I don't want to be an influencer. I want to be as objective as I can be in reviewing a product, so that you know that I describe a product as is, and then you can decide whether you want it or not. But it's very easy for me to take anything like this here, which I have, sorry, this is my notebook, this is my price, $10. This is a platinum Visconti, I'm not yet sure on how to pronounce that. I can record a review tomorrow and pay attention to my lighting and praise this pen into the high heavens, so to speak, and I'll make you want to buy this pen. Well, first of all, I don't benefit because I don't see a penny if I do that. The second thing is, though, what would be the point? My point should not be to convince you to buy a pen. It should be to tell you what that pen is all about. And I think in social media, we are moving more and more towards a model where it is people's sole function to make you want to buy things. That's the influence part, an influencer. And I balk at that. I don't find that appropriate. If I'm really happy about a pen, which sometimes happens. Sometimes I'm super enthusiastic about a pen. Well, then I try to let that shine, but I still try to be as objective as I can be. Hence I'll tell you what I like about it and what I don't like about it. Right? You have to be balanced. It cannot be a case of, let me take a sip of my Ovaltine, which was sent to me by Ovaltine.com. Now let me take a sip of water from my Nalgene bottle that was sent to me by Nalgene with a special cap that's actually from Human Gear, which is great because unlike the natural, the normal Nalgene caps that just flop back, this actually locks in place. So when you drink, it never hits your face. It's amazing. Plus the mouth is less wide, so you don't splash everywhere. So that was 3 products in less than a minute, right? It could be like that. I don't want to be like that. What other people do is up to them. That's not under my control. Hashtag stoicism. But I hope I haven't bored you, but I think this is an incredibly important discussion to give thought once in a while and think about how you feel about those kinds of social media things. Now, the final aspect of that question was, do you think it might create any biases when you see pens that write all the time on social media, right? Then you may start to believe that that's how all pens are. Then you buy a pen and yours has baby's bottom and it just won't write. Yeah, I think that's another risk. But again, like I can take something, now this in my mind is a very beautiful material, right? The Alambru pens LB6. But I can take a picture of this for Instagram in the snow, high contrast, beautiful light that will make this look stellar. And I sometimes do that. Maybe not in the snow, but I sometimes do that. But then I'm trying to show you, look, this is a really beautiful pen. But that, in my mind, is then because I'm enthusiastic about that pen, not because I'm trying to push a product on you. Because I can honestly say that has never been my goal. For me. This was, by the way, this question was not an attack on me or something. I just want to make that clear. It also wasn't taken as such. But again, it's a thing to think about. And we all do that, right? Are you going to put a crappy picture on your Instagram? Or do you put that one filter on it that makes it look a little better? It's a slippery slope. And this applies to all sorts of things. Disturbing things. Things about body image. thinks about products, thinks about all sorts of things that get filtered more and more and more until we can no longer separate the reality from the bullshit. Just saying. So yeah, I think that's true. I think you also create biases that way. You may make it seem that something is much more attractive than it really is. That's very dangerous. And I often fear, I will end this after this, because I don't want to take up your entire day with this ranting. But I particularly think for young people, this is in many ways a rough time to be alive, because they see perfect lives and perfect products and perfect relationships and perfect swimsuits and perfect everything on their social media all the time. And the question is what that does to them, and how it makes them feel, and how they believe the world truly is. God, I'm an old man. But beyond that, that was my opinion. I genuinely hope that I haven't bored you, because I always feel that when I talk about these topics that my opinion is not that interesting, and that I'm just boring people. I try to keep it short. I hope it was okay. If you have any other questions, leave them in the comments below, please, and I will get to them in a future Consult the Doctor video. I wish you a very happy rest of your day, and I'll gladly see you later. Bye bye.